Hi everyone, my name's James. I'm a physiotherapist specialising in running and endurance sport. As many of you will know, I'm also the physio supporting Run Fit Run Fast. Today, Ben and Cos and the team at Run Fit Run Fast have asked me to talk to you a bit about Shin Splints, otherwise known as Medial Tibial Stress Syndrome. So I thought in this short video, I'm just going to explain what it is, why you experience some of the symptoms you do, some tips on when you might need to get it looked at, and also kind of a bit of a diagnosis yourself, and then also some things you can do to try and keep you running, keep you training and aiming for some great times along the way with the support and coaching of Run Fit Run Fast. So let's dive straight into medial tibial stress syndrome. Okay, so let's look at medial tibial stress syndrome and what it is basically. So I brought with me a good friend of mine here. So as you can see here, this is the right leg here. So get both legs up for you, okay? And here you've got your shin bone, this large bone through here. And typically what we find with medial tibial stress syndrome is a pain on the inside of the lower shin. And typically you'll feel that when you're running, and it'll gradually get worse as you run. On palpation, when you touch the inside of the shin bone, you'll feel that it's quite tender. And one of the first things I'd advise you doing is have a feel of how large that tender area is running up the shin bone. Now, typically we'd expect that pain to be around 5 centimeters or more. Now, if you have a very pinpoint pain that doesn't spread more than a few centimeters, that's the first indication that you need to get that looked at pretty quickly. The reason for that is, and not to alarm you, but it's showing more symptoms towards a stress fracture rather than medial tibial stress syndrome, which presents with this larger, more diffuse pain along the shin bone, inside of the shin bone. Another things you want to look at to give an indication that you really want to get this looked at is any pins and needles, any swelling, so some severe swelling in the shin area, and also feeling of compression or of pain in and around the back of the shin, around the calf area, as well as this pain here when you run. Now, just on a note on the swelling, I often see people come into clinic telling me that their shins are swollen, and when comparing left and right, actually they're not as swollen as often people think they are. So we're looking, when I talk about swelling, severe swelling. So any of those symptoms, kind of get it looked at even quicker, and also at that point do halt running. And as many of you will know, I'm the last person to say stop running. So that's typically the presentation, a 5 centimeter or more area of pain when touched on the inside lower half of the shin bone, pain that tends to come on when you start running and get worse or not go away as you run. That is a really what we call a differential diagnosis from other things to tell us that, yeah, this is probably a medial tibial stress syndrome. So what can you do about it, and what should you do about it? Let's have a look. Okay, so we're going to make an assumption that you have medial tibial stress syndrome. And from this, I'd just like to kind of cover that this is making an assumption that you've definitely got this, all right? This doesn't replace a full assessment from a qualified physiotherapist, but we're going to make that assumption to give you some advice. Okay, so the first thing and the most important thing is use the support that you've got and that you're surrounded by with Run Fit Run Fast. So talk to us. Make sure you let Lee, Cos, Ben know, so the coaches know that you've picked up this and that this is what you think it is. They can then make adjustments to your training and to your plan. They can have a chat to me, they can run things, and I can advise them on what I think would be good for that condition as well. So you've already got a really good network, so just talk to us about what's going on. Next thing is, unlike some other conditions that I often tell people, it's okay to run with a bit of pain. Pain doesn't necessarily mean damage. Keep running. This is slightly different. What we find through clinical experience and in the research is that this condition doesn't do well by being ignored. So we want to find an amount, a distance, a type of running that you can do pretty much pain-free. Now, the way this presents means that you'll often find that it will come on at some point in the run and then not go away again. So what you need to do is look to see, well, okay, I know that when I run at 4-5 miles, it comes on. So you then just take half a mile off that, and that's your distance. It means you can keep running, but do try and find a distance that is pretty much pain-free, because that's really key. Now, the next thing to look at is what's actually going on in the bone, and why does that lead us down another route. So the bone, without going into detail, the bone is covered by a thin layer membrane, which in this condition, it's thought that that's what's got irritated and inflamed through being continually loaded. And that can be because of an increased intensity and amount you're running, and just because you're actually training really hard for something that means a lot to you. And that's just part and parcel of training and to perform. And what happens, as I said, that gets irritated and potentially a bit inflamed, and that could be leading to why you're getting your pain. And that is usually down to an accumulation of micro damage to that thin layer of bone on the tibia. So what happens is that bone hasn't had time to heal. So it means that the repetitive running means that there's been no or not enough time for that bone to regenerate and heal as it would do in a normal part and parcel of everyday training and life. So the first thing we need to look at then is separating the runs and giving you longer rest between runs. So if you're currently running consecutive days, then you want to be putting in at least 1 or 2 rest days in between those runs, especially if you're able to still do sessions, especially then putting in some extra rest. This is not going to have a massive detrimental effect to your performance, especially if you're kind of in a good stage of training. Actually, rest and recovery for most athletes tends to make them actually feel fresher and fitter and boost things like VO2 max. So it's not all doom and gloom. That will give the bone a chance to regenerate, do a bit of healing, and it'll also then start settling it down. The next thing, really important, is sleep. Now, sleep is not easy for everyone, but it is really important. And I don't want to overemphasize this too much, because of those of you who are watching with small children are probably going to look at me and think, how on earth do I find time to get more sleep or better sleep? But if you can, sleep does help bone heal more than most other tissues, but equally as much as other tissues as well. So it's really important. Try where you can, find more sleep, better sleep, go to bed earlier. Don't necessarily feel that you're being a hero by getting up super early in the morning to go for a run. Actually, on some days, maybe just try and sleep in, and on those extra rest days, give that bone a chance to regenerate and get a little bit stronger. So that's that. If you're looking also about when to go about running, the other quick and easy thing you can do, I often give people, is a 30-second hop test. If you can hop on one leg, obviously, for 30 seconds, you're probably good to run. But again, remember, find that distance that you can do pain-free and work with that and gradually build that up. So while you're doing all of that, make sure you're eating well as well. Remember, if you're increasing your training, increasing your running, you should be increasing your fuel intake. You need to eat to train. It's just unbelievably important. I see so many people with bone stress injuries that just aren't eating enough and getting enough fuel in. They think they are, but they're just not. It's unbelievable. If you're running even 30 miles a week, the amount of fuel you need compared to someone who doesn't run is quite substantial. So make sure you kind of tick that box. Okay, next one is increasing the capacity of all of these soft tissues. Again, we need to start looking at, okay, well, there's a reason this happened in the first place. Potentially that area of the body couldn't cope with what you're asking it to do. So let's get it back while you're not running as much, or if you've had to reduce running. So simple things you can do are small amounts of loading separated by good rest. And that could be jogging on the spot for 30 seconds in the morning and then doing it again in the evening. Again, that's just a little bit of impact on that bone. It actually forces it to regenerate and kind of accelerates a little bit of healing. The next thing is looking at the calf and soleus, so the gastrocs and soleus are the two main muscles at the back of the lower leg. Now, there's been research to say that the medial tibial stress syndrome is related to a bowing force of that bone, and that can be protected by a stronger calf complex at the back. So some simple things is just a single leg calf raise off the bottom step, making sure you've got something to hold on to, down with the heel and up onto your toes, nicely up onto your toes. A simple calf raise, single leg calf raise will build up the capacity in the calf muscle, but at the same time it will also help with some of your balance and things like that as well. I haven't got time in this video to go into huge detail on that, but hopefully that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea. So find on the mat you can run, keep running if you can do it pain-free, increase the recovery days in between your training, talk to the coaches about adjusting your training. They'll talk to me and there'll be a whole kind of loop of communication, making sure you get the right service from Run Fit Run Fast. And at the same time, you can help yourself by increasing the capacity with a little bit of jogging on the spot, as long as it's pain-free, remember, in the morning, in the evening, and doing some single leg calf raises as well. There's tons of other stuff you can do, and when you're in clinic, and one of the people in clinic, I spend for those of you who see me, we spend 45 minutes to an hour just working out what exercises are right for you, how much you should do, should you load them, should you not, and then also looking at gait and all those other bits and pieces which we do in clinic, which I certainly couldn't do in a small short video. If you're in any doubt that this is not medial tibial stress syndrome, i.e. that pain area is quite small, under 5 centimetres, that you've got pins and needles, numbness, severe swelling or pain and in the compartment of the back of the calf muscle, get it looked at by someone professional, someone who is experienced in running injuries, because you can still solve those other things, but they are more serious and you do need to get them identified quite quickly. So getting that reassurance actually can be really well worth that visit to a physiotherapist. So I hope that's been helpful. If you've got any questions, talk to the coaches. Lee, Ben, Cos and myself are here. They'll run the questions through me if they're not too sure. You're in such great hands, but we can't help you if you don't talk to us. So do communicate with us and let us know. And between us, we'll keep you running and aiming for the amazing times at this incredible races and adventures that I know everyone's going to be getting up to in 2022. We've got an amazing summer ahead of us. So enjoy it. I hope that's been helpful. Hit me up if you've got any questions and I'll speak to you soon. Cheers, guys.